Hey, what's going on YouTube? Welcome to another Season 8 League of Legends Champion Guide. Today, I'll be covering top lane Urgot, the Dreadnought.
You cannot know strength until you are broken.
Urgot is a ranged champion that is fairly tanky and outputs some pretty solid damage. A fair chunk of his damage is also max health damage, so he can do a pretty decent chunk of damage to those tankier champions that are found in the top lane. He's really strong in a lot of matchups because he is a ranged top laner, and he has some pretty decent poke damage, which comes from his Q. Urgot's ultimate is also an execute, so he is able to bring down those low health enemies rather easily as long as he can land his skill shot. Urgot, however, is a fairly immobile champion, and there is a lot of champions in League of Legends that do kite him rather easily. He's also got a really large hitbox because he is a pretty thick champion, so dodging skill shots will not be the easiest thing for you. He does also have some pretty long cooldowns early on as well, so you have to be very careful when using your abilities because they don't come off cooldown for a pretty long duration. Either way though, Urgot is an incredibly strong champion in the meta at the moment. There is a reason the pros use him because he is really strong. For your runes, you want to go for Inspiration and Resolve, grabbing Unsealed Spellbook as your keystone. This is a really strong keystone, especially on Urgot, because you of course can switch your summoner spells because certain ones are better at certain stages of the game. You will of course want to start with something like Teleport, but you can always switch to either Ignite or Exhaust to help your dueling capabilities. You then want to follow up by getting Magical Footwear so you get free boots at 10 minutes, and then pick up Minion Dematerializer so you can bring down 6 cannons really easily so you don't have to worry about missing that last hit. Then, since you will be going for a Corrupting Potion start, you want to go for Time Warp Tonic because your potions will last 20% longer, and you'll also get movement speed, helping with your low mobility. Now, as for the Resolve side, I like to go for Bone Plating and Chrysalis. You will be a lot tankier, especially in the early game, because you will take reduced damage from Bone Plating, and Chrysalis will give you 50 health, which will convert into attack damage as you get takedowns. If you feel like you're going to take a lot of poke damage throughout the lane phase, you could always go for Second Wind as well, but usually I feel like Chrysalis is a much better option. Now, as for your summoner spells, you first of course want to pick up Flash. Urgot is a fairly immobile champion, and you can use Flash throughout the game to save your life over and over again when you get caught in a bad position. Of course, you can always use it offensively to dodge skill shots or finish off enemies, or you can combine it with your E ability to quickly engage onto an enemy. Now for that second summoner spell, I like to start with Teleport. This is a great way to get back to lane if you do get pushed out, and of course you can always teleport to another lane as well if you want to try ganking. Since we did take the Spellbook Keystone, you can always swap this out as well. You can take something like Ignite, Exhaust, or Ghost, but usually you want to have Teleport at the start. Now let's look at your abilities, starting with your passive, Echoing Flames. This makes it so your legs actually shoot your basic attacks and they shoot out in a cone. They form a circle around him, and each of these shotguns has an individual reload timer. The next basic attack in the direction of a loaded shotgun causes it to fire, instantly dealing between 40 and 100 based on level percentage AD, plus between 2 and 8% of the maximum health of the target. Like I said, this will be in a cone shape and it will work up to 18 monsters. So this here is a very strong passive because of all that max health damage. It can actually output a lot even against tankier champions. You do have to keep track of your loaded shotguns, however, and you have to make sure you're positioned correctly if you want them to fire, because if they're not loaded, of course it'll just be a normal auto. Next is that Q, Corrosive Charge. When activated, Urgot will launch a canister at the target location that explodes after 0.6 seconds, dealing physical damage and slowing all enemies for 1 second. This is another really strong ability because it does apply a really strong slow, which will keep people in range for Urgot to shred with his W. This ability is very important to land, however, because without that slow, he does have short ranges and he's pretty immobile as well, so getting off a full W is not really that easy for him. You'll therefore want to try to land this on the enemy as much as you can and follow up with the rest of your damage, but if you need to, engage with your E first so it's a lot easier to land. Next up would be your W, Purge. Passively, Urgot's other abilities will apply Purge to enemy champions for 5 seconds, and only one can be marked at a time. When this is activated, Urgot will shield himself and gain 40% slow resist and is ghosted for 4 seconds. During this time, he'll attack the nearest enemy, prioritizing enemy champions marked for purging, and refresh the mark with every attack. He can keep attacking without interrupting his movement, but his base movement speed is reduced by 125, making him even more immobile. This is part of the reason you will want to land your Q ability on the enemy beforehand, because without that slow, keeping up to them to get off a full W, like I said, will be pretty hard. This ability can do an insane amount of damage, so try to get off the full duration and rotate around the enemy to get off your shotguns. Now let's look at your E, Disdain. When activated after 0.25 seconds, Urgot dashes in the target direction though not through terrain, dealing physical damage to all enemies in the way and knocking them aside. Urgot comes to a stop upon colliding with an enemy champion, flinging them over himself and stunning them for 0.75 seconds after they land. So this of course is your main engaging tool because you will go towards an enemy champion, and as long as you hit them, you will also stun them. This will give you enough time to get off your Q ability on that enemy to slow them, and then you can follow up with your W and your autos. It is okay when used as an escape as well, but generally it's much better as an engage. And finally, let's look at that ultimate, Fear Beyond Death. On first cast, Urgot fires a drill forward that impales the first enemy champion struck, dealing physical damage and leashes to them for 4 seconds and slows them by between 0 and 75 based on their missing health. If that target is below 25% of their maximum health, it can be reactivated. So on that second cast, Urgot begins channeling as he launches chains at the target, suppressing them on impact and reeling them in over 1.5 seconds, during which they're untargetable. If the channel is successful, the target is executed and nearby enemies are terrified for 1.5 seconds and slowed by 75%. So obviously it is a very strong ability because it is a really strong execute, and in team fights you have the ability to terrify an entire enemy team and slow them, making it even stronger. In teamfights and in small engagements, try to snipe low health targets whenever possible because you will remove them from the map and fear anybody near you. Now let's look at your skill order, and first you want to put a point into your ultimate whenever you can at 6, 11, and 16. Then focus on maxing your Q ability as quickly as possible because it does some really solid poke damage and also has a scaling slow, making it a very strong ability. Then second, you want to max your W ability because it does some really solid sustained damage and can output a lot in teamfights and in small engagements. That of course means you want to save your E ability for last, but take a point early on in it at level 3 so you can use it as an engage or as an escape. For your combos, we first have the engage from far range. You first want to slow your enemy with your Q ability and then use your E ability to engage into the target, and after you throw them over your shoulders, activate your W and spin around the target to destroy them with your shotguns. This is the combo you want to pull off when an enemy is far away from you, and if you do get them low enough, you can always add your ultimate as well to delete them. For the next combo, we've got the close range engage. You want to use this against champions that are closer to you that you can hit with your E. To pull off this combo, engage into the enemy with your E, and after you throw them over your shoulder, use your Q to slow them, and then spin around the target and delete them with your W. Just like in the previous combo, if you do get the target low enough, you can always add your ultimate as well to delete them. For this next combo, we want to use it against champions we know that we can delete really quickly. Just like in the previous combo, engage with your E, and as soon as they're thrown over your shoulder, add your ultimate, then use your Q to slow them and activate your W. As long as you can get that target below 25% before your ultimate ends, they will get deleted really quickly, and it is the burstiest combo on Urgot. And for the last combo here, we're just going to quickly combine our E and our flash. This one is pretty simple to do. All you want to do is use your E, and before it actually starts going off, flash so you engage onto the enemy really quickly from a long range. This will give the enemy barely any time to react, and it's an even faster engage than a Malphite ultimate if done correctly. During the lane phase, farming is the first thing that's very important. You want to focus on getting as many last hits as possible with your auto attacks, and keep in mind you can always activate your Purge or your Q ability as well to AoE those down. The other part that's really important about the laning phase is trading. You'll want to try to poke the enemy with your Corrosive Charge and try to follow up with harassment from your Purge. You do of course also have the option of engaging into them with your Disdain, but only do this if you know you're going to win the trade for certain. Finally, if you do have teleport selected as your summoner spell, you'll also need to pay attention to the map and teleport to fights if you are needed. When teamfighting on Urgot, you can either sit on the front line and try to shred tanks with your max health damage and your black cleaver, or you can dive onto the enemy team backline and try to delete a squishy with your ultimate and high damage. Both are very viable options, but if you are the most durable champion on your team, then usually you will have to frontline for them. You can also peel for your carries with both the slow from your Corrosive Charge and the stun from your Disdain. Therefore, you'll definitely want to try to peel for them as much as you can throughout the team fight and try to keep them safe. Now we're going to look at a couple of the hard matchups, and first up is Mordekaiser. Now he's not a champion that counters a lot of the champions out there, but Urgot does have some pretty short ranges, and Mordekaiser can get off a lot of damage with his W, and in melee range, he's devastating. Therefore, you'll have to be very careful against Mordekaiser and don't get too close to him, because if he gets on top of you, he will do a ton of damage and can bring you down really quickly. For the next hard matchup, I've got Singed. Singed is a pretty annoying champion because you don't have the best mobility out there, so usually he will be able to get towards you rather quickly and throw you over his shoulder and do a ton of damage with his poisons. So against a Singed, you want to try to keep your range advantage, and if he does come in for an engagement, try to slow him with your Q and kite him while your W is activated. And for the next hard matchup, I've got Scion. Scion will be hard for you because he does have a slowing ability, and he will also usually go for Glacial Augment, so you will be permaslowed, which will allow him to land a charged Q, which will pop you up and allow him to do a lot of damage. He has a lot of all-in potential against you, so you have to play the lane very safe and try to use your range to your advantage. And for the last hard matchup, we've got Wukong. Wukong is pretty annoying to go against in the top lane because you can get off really quick, short, bursty trades which will do a lot of damage to you, and you'll pretty much be able to do none at the same time. He will hit you with his E and his Q and then simply walk out with your W, and there's not too much you can do about it. Therefore, just play the lane pretty passively until you get rather tanky, and then you can fight him later on, at least hopefully. Alright, now let's finish this off with the item build, which starts with a Corrupting Potion and a Warding Totem. This will give you a really nice chunk of sustain in that top lane and also make your trades a little bit more effective with the burn it provides. Of course, we did also go for Time Warp Tonic, so it'll last 20% longer as well and also give us movement speed, so it works great when comboed with that rune. Now for those core items, we have the Black Cleaver, Righteous Glory, and a Frozen Mallet. The Black Cleaver is really solid on Urgot because it will shred with his shotguns and it works great with his W, and he can take armor off an enemy really quickly. This item of course also has a phage component, so you will also get some movement speed when you hit an enemy, allowing you to keep on top of them. We then want the Righteous Glory because it gives us some early tankiness, and you can always activate it as well for some nice movement speed, which is a great way to get on top of an enemy champion to get off your combo. Then we get the Frozen Mallet just so we can perma-slow targets, and if we do miss our Q, it won't be the end of the world anymore because we will have a slow from the Frozen Mallet. Now in between these core items, of course we do want to pick up our boots, and we can get either Ninja Tabbies or Merc Treads. Ninja Tabbies will be great against high AD teams, and Merc Treads are great against AP and CC heavy teams. These are really the only two boots that I would recommend. It is best to go for a defensive pick on Urgot. Now in our item pool, we could first go for a Thornmail. This is a great way to get a chunk of armor that will also reflect damage and apply grievous wounds onto attackers. This of course is going to be really strong against champions that do abuse healing like a Swain or a Warwick. If we then want a mix of armor and magic resist, we could always go for a Gargoyle Stoneplate. This will give you some really solid tankiness, and if there are 3 or more enemies nearby, you'll get even tankier with 40 more bonus armor and MR. When you activate it, you'll also get 40% more health, which is instead 100% as long as 3 or more enemies are near you. This will reduce your damage by 60%, but you will be incredibly tanky, almost unkillable. Then, if you want some purely MR options, you can get either Spirit Visage or Adaptive Helm. Spirit Visage would be the better all-around item, but if there are champions that spam the same ability over and over again, like a Ryze or a Cassiopeia, Adaptive Helm would definitely be superior. Finally, since you are an AD champion, you could always go for a Guardian Angel as well. This will increase your damage at the same time, but if you do die in the later stages of the game, you will come back to life, which of course is incredibly strong. For my example full build, I go for the Black Cleaver, then I choose my boots, get a Righteous Glory and a Frozen Mallet, and then I like to go for a Thornmail and a Gargoyle Stoneplate. You'll be an insanely tanky and durable champion, but you'll also do some pretty good damage at the same time because of your kit and the Black Cleaver and Frozen Mallet. You won't be a true carry, but you will be able to 1v1 the vast majority of champions out there. And that's everything I've got for top lane Urgot. If you guys enjoyed the video, please make sure you like and subscribe and visit the video description below. I have a link to all my social medias, and I do also have a Discord server and a second channel that I upload daily to now, so those are some you should definitely check out. But other than that, thank you guys so much for checking out the video. I really do appreciate it, so take it easy, have a good day, and peace.